What's going on, workforce? Brian here, and in today's video we're talking about my new setup for 2019, especially here for Summoner. So there's going to be a part of it as my double cross hotbar layout. With patch 4.4 we've gotten a lot of skills, and frankly there's a lot to manage. So we've made a lot of changes, and a lot of people have commented on stream, hey, what are you doing? Your UI looks really clean, looks really slick. Can we get a guide on it? Can you tell us what you're doing? And so that's what this is. There's going to be a part of this. The first part is going to be completely focusing in on my double cross hotbar setup, my new UI layout. Then we're going to jump into our Summoner kind of skills and rotation talk, various tips and tricks. Really, this is going to be a guide about the Summoner, but we're going to talk about the UI, because I think you could take some of these changes and apply them to all the jobs. And if you guys want to see updated guides on any of the other jobs, sound off in the comments below. Be sure to hit that like button and tell me what it is that you want to see me kind of tackle next. I love casters, and so coming back to Summoner after working on all the jobs has been a true blast. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in to my layout. Okay, so if you've seen any of my videos, you're going to notice that there's a lot that has changed here with this layout. I have the double cross hotbar with using the directional buttons, and then I have my standard cross hotbar, and I've gone ahead and moved my compass here, my map, my mini map, and all that into the center just to kind of help give it a nice little visual flow here. To go ahead and dive easily into it, let's go into my HUD layout. If you guys have not played around with this control, I recommend that you do so. I've moved my focus target hotbar up here to the right hand side. I've got my main target bar right here. You'll see I have hotbar 6, and I have a skill here, and we'll talk about why that is. Now if I'm targeting somebody, I've kind of aligned it in a way. If I go ahead and close this out of this and target myself and bring back up the HUD, you'll see that I've aligned it in a way that the bar itself is going to line up with this. I've also turned on the setting to only show the inflicted status elements that I've put on. I found that as I did turn it on for everybody, and I've gone since back just to show my debuffs, because as a summoner I want to make sure that I have my bio and my miasma on the target really at all times, just as a part of my general rotation. So it got real busy and it became hard to manage just those debuffs alone, especially when running in any content that's greater than 4 individuals. Now, I have hotbar 6 here, and we'll talk about reason why, especially as a summoner, but you guys can lay out any of this stuff yourself. 7, 4, 5, all of these things are just kind of placement holders that really haven't really changed much. My enemy list is listed here. Pretty much that has not changed from before. I've got Aether Flow, Progress Bar, and Trance Gauge all above here on the mini map, because as I'm kind of targeting within my kill wheel and within my main focus area visually, I want to kind of have that information fed to me. One of the things that a lot of DPS struggle with in Final Fantasy XIV is you get so focused on your rotations, you do end up missing mechanics, or you end up missing some crucial bit of information. So I'm trying to reduce that in myself. I've got my enfeeblements right here, and my enhancements. If you guys aren't aware, this is a new feature as of patch 4.1 where you can actually split it up into 3 different groups. And so that's what I've done here. I've split up the enfeeblements, enhancements, and you can see my status info other. This is like any XP buff, any kind of food buff right here. Not important to the fight itself, but it's very important that I want to go ahead and split those up. You can easily bring them back into one single element, but I split it up into 3 groups, and you can have various properties and settings that you want to manage here as well. So go ahead and play around with that. Find out what works for you. But I've got enfeeblements and enhancements right here within kind of this little square. You see my left cross hotbar, my right cross hotbar, and then I've got my main cross hotbar here, and then hotbar 1 can go. He's not doing anything. I'll just move him down here. Not important, not being used. And then my parameter bar there as well. That is pretty standard and simple. I've gone ahead and moved my Sargatanas and my my server information right here, namely because when I'm streaming, people ask me what server I play on, so this way it's visually on screen at all times, as well as the amount of gil that I've got, and then my duty list. So most of this stuff is really less important. The target bar, if you think of this as a square box, that is what is the most important. We're gonna go and say okay, because I don't really care about that hotbar because it's invisible. The other piece of this is under character configuration, hotbar settings, and then you can see under cross hotbar, I've got always display the double cross hotbar. I have turned off the return to cross hotbar after cross hotbar input, because I've gone in and gone into directional buttons for the double cross hotbar. So under custom, under this section, I've enabled my directional buttons, and this is how you get to it. You just double tap the right trigger or the left trigger to be able to get there. And what I've done is I've turned off return to the cross hotbar after double cross hotbar input, because when I'm over here, I want to be able to stay over here on any kind of action that I choose to use. And so this is very important. This is critical to turn this off. Before, in my previous guides, you would see that this was on because I was just using the double cross hotbar for these additional one-off skills for whenever I needed them. So that is important, and that is a big change as a part of this guide itself. So go ahead and do that if you're going to go ahead and follow my kind of direction in my design here. Now, the other thing with the double cross hotbar and the cross hotbar input is that with this, I'm focusing in on kind of using my rotation. So from a ordering, from a, I guess, an order of operations perspective, I intend to stay in this wheelhouse for as much as possible. So I try to group things together where they make sense. This is not to say that you have to follow these direct skill placements. This is just what I have found works for me, and I'll explain why they work for me here just in a little bit. So before we jump into the various layout that I've got here, I want to take a note to talk about my summoner macros here. So if you see me switch over to Titan, you're going to see these abilities get updated to the Titan abilities. If I wasn't feeling like being a lazy summoner and I put him in Obey, I can have access to demand his abilities. And you can use this for Scholar as well. This is really critical. So how is that being accomplished? You can see if I put in for Garuda, you can see my summon here, and then these become the Garuda, the caster type abilities. Let me go and show you that in the macro section. If you guys want to have something like that, you want to use macros for it. So you can see summon here, I'm AC, summon me, that's going to do your basic summon. And then I do C hotbar for cross hotbar, pet, contagion, the name of the ability, the name of the pet, in this case Garuda Eggy, which cross hotbar this is. This is cross hotbar 3. So if I go over to 3, actually it's going to do that. Let me click off the window. And if I go over to 3, this is the 3. This is where these are set. So you see that as 3, and then LDL. This means left, down, left. So left side, down, the down button, and then left again in this case. So that would be, then you see LDU, which would be left, down, up, LDR, left, down, right, and then left D, left directional pad, and then I guess D again, LDD. The list for all of these macros, all these different commands for your cross hotbar are found on the website, on the player's guide for macros. I'll see if I can make sure there's a link in the description for you guys as soon as possible. So be sure to check that out if you're looking for additional or different placements of these skills. Same thing applies for Ifrit, same thing applies for Titan. These are all in the same positions. I just kind of copy and paste and then change the name of the skill and obviously the name of the summon to manage those as well. And that's what gives me the effect of whenever I switch my pet, because that's something you're going to do, you're going to end up having the skills that you want placed there for your enjoyment, for your own ability and on-demand customization for that of the summoner. Okay, with that out of the way, I want to go ahead and talk about my hotbar layout. I keep my left double cross hotbar, which is my hotbar 3 in this case, for 3 left and 3 right here. So those how all those skills are set. As the kind of, this is my one-offs, my my roll actions, my mana shift, my lucid dreaming, my erase, my apotheosis, radiant shield, burning strike, crimson cyclone, and flaming crest. This is, like you saw, is going to switch out for the pet abilities here, so I can use those on demand if I'm not feeling like a lazy summoner. If I'm feeling like a lazy summoner, I'm gonna let Ifrit or whatever pet I'm using decide his own fate in that regards. Now, on the left side, you can see here I've got Death Flare, Dreadworm Trance, Tribind, my Potion of Intelligence. In this case, I've just crafted a bunch of X Potions of Intelligence for my own use and consumption, so that is what it is. I've got Rouse, Enkindle, Shadow Flare as a macro, and then Swift Cast here. Now, you'll notice one thing that I am not using in this case anymore, especially with it, I don't need my cooldowns. I've actually shifted that up here because in the case of the Summoner, Ruin 2 has a chance to proc into Ruin 4. And I want to make sure that when I'm focusing on my target, that I am not going to miss the opportunity to put out a Ruin 4 at any moment in time. In the PvE content, this is a instacast, Ruin 2 is, as well as Ruin 4. And even still as a summoner, even if you don't need to move, Ruin 2 is a really good spell to use, namely because it allows you to be able to do a lot of off the global cooldown stuff, because you can still while you don't have any cast time. So you can throw it off, you're in cooldown, you can still pop out Fester and do other things. So you want to weave in Ruin 3 and Ruin 2 together, so it's still a viable ability nonetheless. Now, you'll notice Ruse and Enkindle, these are and should be paired together for the maximum amount of DPS. If you use Rouse and then followed by Enkindle, which has a 180-second recast, you're going to use Rouse far more often. So you got a 60-second recast here, and then you have a 180-second recast here. So you can actually do 2 Rouses within any kind of rotation before you need to do your Enkindle, but you want to pair them together because it's just going to give you that huge boost. It's a boost of 40% to your pet, then also making them immune to stun, sleep, bind, and heavy in this regard. So I love pairing things together. Things that I want to group together, that's kind of what I'm thinking. My Shadow Flare macro is pretty straightforward and simple. If you guys have not seen this, I don't like to do ground targeting on a controller. So what I want to do is I just want to have it auto target the target in this case. And that macro here is Shadow Flare T. So what this T does, all it is an instacast Shadow Flare, and it is going to automatically target and place it under the feet of whoever I'm targeting. If you don't want to use that, I completely understand, and you would have to control it yourself and place it yourself. And so if you're on keyboard and mouse, you can easily do that as well. But personally, I don't want to think about it. I just want to have it automatically go out for that target. And Swift Cast, I have it here, both that communicate that it's on, if it's off cooldown, because I also have it here on my extended cross hotbar to kind of pair with my summon in most cases, or with my resurrection if need be. But I have it here. That way I can easily, accompany it with a Ruin 3 if I so desire and I'm not in Dreadworm Trance. All right, over here I've got Sure Diversion, which is Sure Cast and Diversion put together. The first ability that goes off is Diversion, and then the second ability is Sure Cast in this case. I just kind of grouped those together because I wanted to save one hotbar space, and then I wanted to be able to make sure that I'm using Diversion and also Sure Cast as needed. You could easily add these to any kind of bar to communicate if Sure Cast is on cooldown, but for me, that's just my personal preference. Use it for whatever works for you. Then following this, I've got Bane, Energy Drain, Pain Flare. These are a part of the Aether Flow. These are going to use your Aether Flow, and so is Fester. Originally I had Fester here, but I wanted to move Fester here because if I'm moving and having to use Ruin 2 and I still have my dots up on the target, I want to make sure that I don't have to stop and kind of do some kind of crazy stuff with my thumb. Fester is going to be the thing that puts out obviously the most damage. I still can do that for Bane, Pain Flare, and Energy Drain, but typically, especially from a boss fight, I'm rarely having to move when there's a lot of ads out on the field. Now that can still change. You guys use it to whatever is your best preference. But I wanted to make sure that if I needed to move, I can still Ruin 2 and I can still Fester as much as possible. Nothing more than speaks to me on this than the Thunder God, because there is a lot of movement mechanics on him, and there's only really a lot of single target stuff as well. I have Tri-Disaster right here, Ruin 3 and Ruin 2. Now, one of the things a lot of, summoners that I see who are new to the job, they make a lot of mistakes is like, they would prioritize Ruin 3 over Ruin 2 just because of the potency boost itself. Now, this has a 20 point potency boost, and it becomes instacast whenever you're doing, in your Dreadworm Trance. But for the most part, when you think about it, you can easily weave in other abilities on a Ruin 2 cast as opposed to doing a Ruin 3. So whenever there's nothing like that you need to do, like a Fester, you're off a Aether Flow, yeah, sure, get that additional potency that is a part of your base rotation in, because that's just going to help, obviously increase your damage. However, if you're dropping and you're missing opportunities to Fester and get into Dreadworm Trance, then you're kind of overusing Ruin 3 in this case. So I have them both here, and the reason I bring that up is because I also want to talk about the right-hand side here, the double cross hotbar on the right side. You'll see that I actually use Ruin 2 here, and it's in the same position. So that way, if I'm ever in one position or another, and if I press the A button in this case, I am going to use Ruin 2. It is guaranteed. It's a little bit of muscle memory. So if I find myself accidentally getting caught over here, I'm going to Ruin 2 and it's going to be okay. And if it's upgraded to Ruin 4, all the better. But here I've got Bio 3 and Miasma 3, which is just your bio skills and and those are going to upgrade for you as you level, which is really nice. Then I also have my Aether Flow. If Tri-Disaster is off, which is really important to me, I want to make sure that I can go ahead and grab these abilities and be able to pop them on to the target if needed, especially if I've got a 30-second wait on this. The beautiful thing about Try Disaster is Dreadworm Trance will refresh it. So if you go into Dreadworm Trance, this gets refreshed. So sometimes, for me, it's more important to get into Dreadworm Trance so I can try, pop on Try Disaster rather than having to wait for Miasma 3, a cast of that. Now, it's all going to be situational. It's all going to be about priorities for the summoner itself. So over here, I've got Summon Bahamut and Kindle Bahamut. I put these together because I want to be able to summon them out, pop in and Kindle, because you can get two, Ockmorns on a target if you do, if you don't wait to enkindle. So I grouped those together for there. And then I've got Addle and I've got Aether Pact. The reason for Addle is I want to be able to reduce their intelligence to be able to pop out a little bit more damage. And I do try to group that. And I want easy access to this. So I end up doing a lot more attacking on the right-hand side, and that's with all of my jobs as well, than on the left-hand side. Now, obviously, we have my extended cross hotbar. We've already covered the macros, but let me go ahead and just show you guys what I have there as well. So I've got my summons over here so I can easily summon my pet if needed. I have Resurrection and Physic, which is a cure. So if I need to be able to put out a little bit of curing, I can. Not obviously the strongest, but it's still nice to have as a summoner. I've got Sustain, which is the healing of my pet ability. So if they're taking a lot of damage, I don't have to let them just drop and have to resummon. I also have Swift Cast and Resurrection here. That way I can easily get a quick resurrection in because I am not a res mage. I'm not a red mage, so I don't have that ability. So I do want to make sure I try to pair those together. And finally, I have Break right here. Nothing real magical about this. I just have this in case I want to be able to put a little damage. I hope they rework those in 5.0. So guys, that is my new cross hotbar layout. Those are my skills that I've got set up, and those are the changes that I've made with the cross hotbar. We've covered the macros. We've covered, obviously my layout and some of the reasoning behind why the decisions I've made as far as this goes. I hope this has been a help. I know, like I said at the beginning of this video, I really want this to kind of, become something you own, whether it is something that you kind of copy off of me and then you find a good comfort level. Being a good summoner or being a good player in this game has more to do with muscle memory and not having to think about the situation. If you can train yourself for the situations before they happen, you end up already having and knowing what you need to do, and that way you stop dropping ruins, you stop dropping dots. You end up finding yourself kind of in a trance, a dreadworm trance, if we were going to make a joke about summoner in this case. So that's really where it's important. You shouldn't have to think where these abilities are. As you work and you start to play, it needs to become something very natural so that you know where your abilities are. So it's more kind of a combination of your buttons than it is trying to think like, okay, what do I need to do? Now, obviously all this comes with practice. The best summoners, the best even any casters out there, it also comes down into knowing the fight and what is about to come up. Because sometimes you might want to hold off using your Try Disaster because you know there's about to be a shift in the boss's phase, and you'd rather apply this maybe to a set of ads and then be able to bane those ads and be able to get into Dreadworm Trance sooner and quicker so that you can really kind of burn things down fast. Because sometimes when you don't have your Aether Flow, sometimes when you don't have your stacks, sometimes when you're sitting here and you just have to wait, you're wasting time in that case. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I just want to try to advise that, as you can try to learn the fights that you're running as a summoner, it is a job about priorities and less about any set rotation. Does your target have dots on them? Do you have enough stacks to be able to kind of burn it? Are you going to choose to get into Dreadworm Trance faster at a DPS loss at the front to be able to get in, be able to apply some things and do some more and get into Bahamut quicker? It's going to really vary depending on how you're choosing to play and what the situation demands. Sometimes as a summoner, you want to really make sure that, I need a res. So don't worry about your number overall because the summoner has a lot of utility. Like when we talk about like your Aether Pact, when we talk about your Resurrection, sometimes it helps to be able to say, I'm here, healers, you focusing on keeping everybody up. I'm going to keep raising people for you. So you have a strength in summoner. Summoner is probably, I think, honestly, one of my favorite jobs in the game. So, Final Fantasy XIV summoners, woohoo. All right. If you have any questions about how I've chosen to lay things out, how I choose to kind of manage these skills, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to have that conversation with you. Hopefully this has been interesting and helpful. Like I said, I'm going to look and see about updating some of the guides for the various jobs as well. 4.4 has been a murder on my hotbars because of so many skills have come back in and you can have them all. You can see obviously I'm choosing not to take all of them, but at the end of it, it still was like, okay, how in the world am I going to manage this? And the only way that I could see without doing an insane amount of macros or missing, you know, various drops on my cooldowns and my rotations, I wanted to go ahead and say, let me just go ahead and use the extended cross hotbar, the W cross hotbar, to its full potential and see if that helps. And I've been playing around with this. You've seen it on stream. And I think it's been a huge help in my comfort level. And it takes a little bit of adjustment. It took a little bit of adjustment and I've moved things around here and there. But this is kind of what I've settled on as the best of both worlds. But with that, guys, my name's Brian. This is Work to Game. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a fantastic day. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Hey guys, it's me. Oh, well, if you don't know me, my name's Terry. I'm a beautiful Tyrannosaurus from Texas, and it just doesn't get more country than that. I tell you what, I grew up in these parts, I was resurrected by a ghost, and that ghost told me that I need to come out and hang out on Work to Game's YouTube channel to tell everybody they should totally hit that thumbs up. Thumbs down make Terry hungry. It makes me hungry. You hear me? Hungry. Anyway, Terry, just keep it together. Keep it together, Terry. All right, guys. So, with that, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and hit subscribe if you haven't already to see more of me and my beautiful nose. Okay. All right. Good talking to you. I'll see you guys soon. I'll see you real soon. Terry, the Tyrannosaurus from Texas.